Hello and welcome to Stitched from my stash. My name is Julie and I'm coming to you from just north of Glasgow in the UK, and my channel is about sewing, knitting, crochet, patchwork and quilting. And I'm going to add a bit of chit chat about the fact I've joined the local sports centre and the books I'm reading at the moment. So that'll be towards the end, the chit chat. Thank you for joining me, and it's good to have your company. Thank you for all the comments and the likes and the subscribers. So I'm going to make a start by talking about what I'm wearing. Pussy bow blouse. Tricky to say. And I made this perhaps 4 years ago. I forgot to look up in my journal, my sewing journal, which is on the shelf there, when I made this. I'm not going to look now because there's a lot in there. So pussy bow blouse, and I really like this. To be honest, I haven't worn it much, but I had it in my head at the time I made it. I wanted to make a pussy bow blouse. I ordered the pattern, which is this Burda pattern, which I'll put at the bottom. You can see there's two versions of the blouse, sleeveless and with sleeves. The fabric, I think it came from Abercorn in North Wales. It's a really light cotton. It's got a lovely feel to it. And I thought I had some more of this, but I can't seem to locate it. And not that I've looked, but I have been rummaging through fabric over the last couple of weeks. Anyway, it's a lovely soft cotton and it's really comfy to wear. I'll just stand up here to show the full effect. When I made this, I was posting more on Instagram, and I remember, and one of my subscribers was top of the class when I asked the question, what have I done wrong? And I did. I can see I'm blushing a bit. I sewed one of the sleeves on back to front, so the cuffs don't coordinate, but I think I'd put it on. I'd sewed it on. It's all French seamed, and I thought, hey ho, it's going to stay like that. So well done for spotting the mistake when I know I put it on Instagram quite a few years ago. I would recommend this pattern. It's got some really nice details, little pleats here and a little yoke, and there's a yoke at the back which I can show you in a moment because I did make another version. And I just looked up on the internet how to do a pussy bow on your blouse, and my coordination isn't great, so I ended up just doing it myself. But this is a nice summer wear with a jacket, without a jacket. It's really nice and warm up here today. So I know in the south of the UK they've had heat waves, not so much up here in Scotland, but it is beautiful today, and I do have some washing to hang out after I've done the vlog. The other version I made was this one. I'm just going to tilt the camera a little bit, so excuse me if it's a bit wibbly wobbly. And this one is out of a fabric that somebody gifted me. So I'm not sure if it is a silk. It's been washed and worn, and I can't remember if I hand wash it because I haven't worn it for a while. But it's, again, this is nice. I think I've got a filter on the camera, like a more vibrant filter, because it is, the light isn't great in this room for filming. So it's, yeah, it's more of a brownie than an orange in the, as it comes out on the film. So the detail I wanted to show was at the back, there's a yoke and then this little pleat at the back, which is a nice feature. Can't quite make it out there, but it does have this little feature on the back, and it does have like shirt tail, slight dip for the shirt tail at the back. And on the button band, if I move the bow, the button band is a sort of double, so your buttons are hidden within this flap. Now, you know, it is quite a complex make, hence me putting the sleeves on back to front, which I don't think I think I made this one first. Anyway, so if you've ever done one of these, this piece of fabric extends quite a lot, and then you fold it over to make this encased button band. And I did the buttonholes on my machine, and they look quite neat. Perhaps my machine likes this type of fabric, because the buttonholes on my machine aren't always that successful. And the buttons are, on this one, are really pretty flower shapes, which I think came from my late mother's stash. So, as I said, I have worn this one. I think possibly more than I've worn this one, but I'm going to dig this one out and wear it a bit more where I go to often wear a pussy bow blouse. I'm not sure, but I would recommend these makes. Anything else I want to say about them? I didn't French seam this one. I just used an overlock stitch on my sewing machine, not on an overlocker. So I just did the seams, put the seams together and did an overlock stitch on my machine, not on the overlocker, because I think I thought the overlocker might be a bit harsh on this fabric. So I did an overlocker on here, on my sort of a stitch on my straightforward sewing machine. So that's what I'm wearing. If you fancy making a pussy bow blouse, as I did, I would recommend this pattern. I think it's nice to feel sort of, it's quite jolly and dressy. So that's what I'm wearing. I'm just going to turn the camera again so we can just have that in the background. Do excuse me, I'm having a cup of coffee, so cheers. I have my list, so I'm going to tick off what I'm wearing. And I didn't make a video last week. The time just went because I've been going to the sports centre. And we were away for the weekend. I did take my sewing with me, and I did get some sewing done. I have one finished item, which is my red quilt, which I'm really pleased with. I'm going to add a video of the finished quilt. So I'll add this here and see you in a mo. Right, let me look through that. Okay, welcome back. If there's a little noise in the background or a bark, it's because we have my daughter-in-law's dog here. They're on holidays in Portugal. Hope they're surviving the heat. And we have the little dog. So he may bark. He's quite a barky little dog if somebody knocks the door or the postie comes. So he may bark. Anyway, the red quilt. I'm so pleased with this. I think I forgot to do the full measurements. I have my little book here. The blocks are 12 inches. And so 5/12s are 60. So it's about 60 inches by 60 inches. It's a square quilt. And that's quite a nice size, to be honest. It's to go on my little futon in my sewing room. I'll add a photo here. And it is the good size. So if you are considering making a bigger quilt, and if you don't want to do a full-size bed quilt, I've done king size and doubles, and it is a bit onerous. 60 by 60 is a really nice size. So it's 5 blocks by 5 blocks. I used wadding. Again, I'll add some photos here. Pieces of wadding, polyester, that I had, but I had to sew them together in order to make enough to do the wadding, the batting for the quilt. And I do find if you're doing, like I'm trying to do, make, do and mend, it does take a bit longer. This wadding, as you see in the photograph, some of it is strips. So sewing together that does take extra time rather than if you had a big piece of wadding that was ready to go. But it does mean I've cleared a little space in one of my, it's not a cupboard, one of my spaces where I put the wadding. And it's a good use of, rather than just hanging on to it or throwing it out, it's a good use of pieces. The fabric, this was bought, I'm not sure what I had in mind, bought before the pandemic or online from Doughty's in Herefordshire. This was pyjamas that I didn't wear, pyjama bottoms I didn't wear, they were too big. This, the remnants of a dressing gown. This, a blouse, again I didn't wear much and I unpicked. What else do we have? This was bought specifically for making a quilt. I don't think I used this in anything. what else? I think that's so there's 3 different centers of this star block, and then I alternated red on the outside and flowers on the outside. I did make 1 or 2 mistakes where I had to unpick the half square triangles or whatever, but not too many. The quilting is just diagonal stripes done on my machine using walking foot and red quilting cotton. I thought I'd left the cotton out on my table. Can't see it. Red quilting cotton in the top and ordinary sew-all thread in the bobbin. And the tension wasn't too bad. Sometimes I get trouble with the tension when I'm doing quilting on the machine, but it wasn't too bad. The backing, which you would have seen in the video, is, I think, really nice. And that came from Abercorn. It's a quilting weight cotton, but it does have a lovely feel to it. And it was a whole piece. No, I did have to join. So how wide would it have been? Perhaps it was 54 or 50 inches. It wasn't too wide. So I had to join a strip of the pink, but it's all pink. Apart this strip makes a whole backing. So I'm so pleased with this, and I like the feel of the wadding. It's a little bit bouncy, and I think that feels quite nice. So what else am I going to say about this quilt? I used spray basting. Again, I'll add some photographs of the basting. And I didn't have loads left, so there's not much left at all now. In the UK, this is £8 a tin from Dunelm, which is a nice store with sort of household things, some fabric and a little bit of haberdashery, but lots of housey things, knicky-knack, and bedding, really nice bedding and curtains. So this was from Dunelm. So I used spray basting, but I also, and I've put them away now, I also used quilt basting safety pins, which the ones I've got are really nice gold ones, and they have a bend in them. So I did sort of belt and braces, I did spray basting and the pins. I managed to get through lots of red thread when I was sewing the blocks together. So I used red thread to sew the blocks together, which, as I've said before, I have lots of thread and I'm happy to get through it. So that was that. And I think that's all on the red quilt. Just looking at my, oh, I tell you what else. The binding, I'd cut this red binding out years ago for what I can't remember. So I had some binding already made. So I sewed, in fact, it was 2 inches. So I did double binding. It's 1 inch on the actual quilt. And sew this bit down, the raw edge, and then you have the folded edge, the crease, to join to your backing fabric. I had most of this cut out, and it was cut on the bias, which was great. But I had to add, I don't know, 30, perhaps 40 inches of binding. So I had to cut more. And luckily, I did find some more of this red in a cupboard. But I didn't cut it on the bias. I cut it on the straight grain. And I know is there a debate? Not sure if a debate is too elaborate a word. But I think when you cut it on the straight grain, I think you do get a bit of stretching, and it's not stretching. It doesn't sit as nicely. Anyway, the binding I'd already cut out mostly, so that was good. And I'm so pleased I finished it. So the red quilt, all done and will be in use in my sewing room. So I'm going to put this to one side and crack on with talking about other things. Just going to tick off the red quilt, and I'm going to have another sip, excuse me, of my coffee. Okay. Now, the other projects I've been working on haven't made much progress. There's the embroidery, which I can't remember how much I'd done before. I did these, which I wasn't too pleased with, but Andrew, my partner, thinks they look fine. And I think I finished the leaves since I last posted. And there's supposed to be a little motto inside which says, make beautiful things. Now, my handwriting isn't great anyway. I'm new to embroidery, so I don't think I could make that look nice. So what I'm going to do at some point is fill the middle with some more flowers, which I can probably do okay. The writing, I used a pencil to trace the writing from a magazine, which I don't know where it is now, it's in a basket. So I can't rub that out, I don't think. I could try. Haven't tried. I could try. If it doesn't rub out, or if it just makes a mess, I'm going to fill that with flowers, because I don't think I can do the writing neatly enough. I think the sentiment's okay, but so that's the embroidery I've been working on, not because I haven't done much on that, but let me tick it off even though I haven't done much on it. The other thing I haven't done much on is the little cardigan that it's a hat, sorry, that goes with this blanket I showed last time. So it's a little hat which is going to be 3 different colours. I have the supplies in my rice bag. So I have the startings of just a little pull-on hat, newborn size, that will go with the blanket. And I wanted to do it on these double pointed needles that Andrew and I made out of plastic needles that came from my late mother's stash of knitting, haberdashery, etc. And they are successful, but I'm at the stage where I've just cast on. I think halfway through the first row. So you've got to make sure you don't twist the stitches. So I don't know if it was that, or I don't know, because I just wasn't in the mood. So I haven't made much progress. Andrew does a lot of the driving if we're going anywhere. And normally I can knit in the car. But because I was at this early stage, I couldn't get my head around knitting on that, preventing the stitches from twisting whilst we were sitting in the car. And I've been cracking on with the quilt, so perhaps that's why I haven't specifically made much progress on that. But I will get back into it. So that's going to be a pull-on hat, free download off the internet, which I'll give the pattern when I finished. and it's going to be a combination of colours. So back into my little rice bag, which I really like. You can see I'm a pink and blue fan with a little bow. Okay, the rice bag. So that's my previous projects, and I have started another project. I had in mind to make a miniature quilt. I will get back to making a miniature, and I wanted to make it out of my red scraps. I have a lot of scraps. But then I thought, well, I'm making a log cabin design, and I've never done a big log cabin. The only log cabin I've done is these little lavender sachets. So I haven't done a big log cabin. And I fancy doing one. As I've said before, where do our ideas come from about what we want to make? But I fancied making a log cabin. So I was going to make a smaller one to frame. Just have a smell of the lavender. Oh, lovely. I was going to make a smaller one to frame. And then I thought, I want to make some quilts for our lounge. We live in an old, what is it, 1885 house. We are in the process of renovating, and it can be quite drafty. So some quilts and throws in our lounge will be handy, and for us to tuck up under. And the lounge is what sort of colour? It's called India yellow. And I thought, instead of making a small log cabin, I'm going to make a throw inspired by my red quilt. I'm going to make a throw size because I enjoyed this size. I'm going to make a throw size. So I've dug through my starting off scraps, because obviously when you start on the middle, it starts small, then it gets bigger. And I will add a photograph here of the colours I have. Again, mainly quilting weight cottons. And I have started doing I'm trying to do 4, and I'm adding, they're all going to be slightly different, but I'm adding the strips in, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? As I go along, I'm adding a strip to each square. So I'm aiming for about 30 inches square. Again, these fabrics, somebody gave me this. I think that was car boot. This was one of the quilts I made for our cottage in North Wales. What have we got here? Oh, I think this came from my late mother's stash. Some lovely cotton gingham. I think somebody gave me this. This was bought at Abercorn. This was bought for quilt making. Somebody gave me this. This is the remnants of a quilt I made for our granddaughter. So, oh, this came from my late mother's stash, retro. This came from my late mother's stash, and some more of the quilt from our granddaughter's, fabric from our granddaughter's quilt. So that's the colours I'm using, and I'm aiming for 4 30-inch squares and sew them all together. Not sure how I'm going to arrange them. I've been looking through this magazine. I've got a lot of these bought over the years from charity shops with lovely ideas in. And there is I think this was the mini quilt. This is a mini log cabin, like a table centre, beautiful colours. So this is where I'd started with the idea of doing the log cabin. And in here you have different orientations of the blocks. So obviously different placement produces a different pattern. So not sure yet how I'm going to place them. I'm also not sure if if my fabrics are differentiated enough, if these are light enough and these are dark enough to make a contrast. But I'm only sort of 2 layers in yet, and I do have some more darker fabric to use. I've also been looking through this book, which I think I bought in a charity shop. Oh, 30p. Where did I buy that for 30p? But this is Creative Log Cabin, and there's the basic log cabin block. So I've had a nice look through here, which has got some more advanced log cabin ideas. I just want to keep it simple at the moment. So that's what I'm going to work on. Now, I don't have much wadding left that I can piece together. I will obviously buy some if I need some, but I was wondering if I could use wool blankets. I went through a phase years ago of buying Whitney blankets. So I have quite a few of those, but they may be too thick. Anyway, we're not ready for the batting yet. So that's one project that I'm working on. I think that's the only project I'm showing at the moment. Just looking at my list. So I'm going to have I've got 2 tools to talk about, which have helped me this week. Number 1 is a magnet for picking up stray needles. The room I'm in is it's an odd room. It's got sloping ceilings, but this is my dedicated sewing room. I'm very lucky. But it does have wooden floors, which every room in this house was covered in like a laminate block, which isn't to our taste. So most of the rooms we've now renovated the floors or taken the laminate up. So we now have in this room exposed floorboards, and they're not great. They're old and they're very gappy. So if my needles and pins mainly needles, fall down the gaps, I can use this trusty device to scoop up the pins. So I'm just looking at the holes in the floor. That's been a good device this week. The other thing I've used, and this wasn't my idea, I've had this off somebody off Instagram, and probably a lot of you use this, is a makeup brush to clean the bobbin case in your sewing machine. And I will add I think it's a video, I might just add it here, of me cleaning out the lint in my sewing machine after making the red quilt. And towards the end of making the quilt, I thought the stitching wasn't too great. Well, obviously it was because is it called the bobbin race, was filling up with lint. So before I started sewing these together, I cleaned out the bobbin race with this makeup brush. I don't use a makeup brush. I put a bit of makeup on, but I'm fibbing. There is a brush in, like if I put a bit of blusher on, there's a brush already in there, but I don't necessarily use one of these. This one was found in this room when Andrew was taking off an old radiator to add a new one. It was found behind there. I think this was a teenage girl's bedroom. So I don't know why the filming's going a bit funny there. I took this for, the filming's gone really funny. Don't know why. See if it's going to come back. I'm going to stop here because the filming's gone funny. Is that any better? Yeah, it looks back to normal again. So using a makeup brush to clean your machine. Probably most of you use that already. But a few years ago, somebody I followed, she followed me on Instagram, put this up and I thought, great. And then I didn't need to buy one because there was one in the house already. So that's my tools that I'm going to talk about this week. Just tick off, there's my pencil. Tick off the tools. Books, I have cracked on with my reading and I did bring my books down. I finished this one and I write it at the bottom, which is a nice, easy, non-controversial read. There's no murders, there's nothing horrible, and it's set in London, and it's a nice, easy-going story. The video's gone again. Right, sorry about that. There is something amiss with my phone. So I'm going to try and finish here, and I'll do some more chat perhaps next week. Suffice to say, the gym's been a success. Take care, everyone. See you soon. Bye.